Right, good evening and welcome to Horror. I'm Lee.
I'm Chris.
And I'm the devil.
Kindly undo these straps.
Yes. And I'm Adam, actually. Possibly Batman.
Not a 12-year-old girl.
How do you know I'm not a 12-year-old girl? It's people like you, body shaming people like me, that stops the world being a lovely place, Chris.
Yeah.
Right.
I identify as a 12-year-old girl. What's your problem?
But that's what creates us some lovely horror.
Before we get too into it, gentlemen, I know that this is going out in January, but it's currently the 15th of December for us.
Happy holidays.
Indeed.
Merry Christmas time.
So I have a special Christmas gift to everybody at Welcome to Horror.
Ooh.
Oh, I know, it's exciting. So, if all goes well, live from Texas, hopefully, he says he's standing by.
Ooh.
There he is.
Captain Howdy.
Fucking hell.
It's weird to see guys outside of the world of Instagram.
This is bizarre. I'm going to go all fangirl now, though, because he's off the radio.
See, I told you, 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Come on now.
You can do it.
I'm hard as a rock right now.
For our listeners, we've just been joined live from Texas by the amazing, the one and only Pinball Bobby from the Not For Everyone podcast. Evening, Bobby.
Go on.
Hey, Bobby.
How are you guys doing?
We're good, thank you, sir.
Thank you guys for inviting me, because it's given me an excuse to start drinking at 1 p.m. on a Sunday. But to be fair, I didn't really need an excuse, but it makes me.
And Lee's behaving himself today. He's drinking tea or coffee.
I was just about to say, I should explain, we've been putting the tree and decorations up, so I've been drinking mulled wine for 2.5 hours.
Oh dear.
Oh boy. Yeah, I don't know. It's like 79 degrees outside right now.
Oh, God.
I wore a cardigan just to get in the Christmas spirit. It's not necessary, though. It's unnecessary.
So how have you been, Bobby? Good?
Very good. I'm a little intimidated by, when we go around the rotation, seeing what we've watched recently in horror, because I have been very preoccupied with Christmas and the holidays and stuff. So I don't have much to contribute there. But I got some stuff when we get to that point. I don't want to take the reins. I want you guys to guide us through this thing.
Excellent. I see you've been up to carpentry as well. That's a Christmassy thing.
Yes, that's right. I was building a manger for the Christ child. No, yeah, I've been building I figured it's easier to save money by just building things for my parents rather than buying things for them. Even though materials cost money, but whatever. I'd rather work than bust out the checkbook.
Well, it always comes across very well, though. That's the thing.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
you've made it. You know?
Yeah. I'll make a macaroni tie for my father this year.
Excellent. Right. So, Chris, apart from going out and drinking way too much last night and then not making it over this morning to watch the film, what have you?
Well, I didn't hardly drink anything. So it turns out I'm an extreme lightweight. I only had 2 shots and 2 beers, and this morning I felt awful.
I'll be having the ketamine though. We recalled.
Well,
I gotta confess something real quick. Right before you guys called me up into this thing, I just slammed a 10-pack of chicken McNuggets.
Good man.
So if I suddenly leave abruptly for
we will forgive you.
Yeah, you'll know why.
See, I was horrified by this because they will only give us them in 6s, 9s, or 20s over here.
Yeah, you need a
Where's
round
my
up
missing
5
nugget? Yeah.
Yeah.
I want my 10.
Yeah.
I was just,
Get 10th. You say throw another one in there. I'm not going to charge you.
Yeah.
Not E10. Anyway, yeah,
I'll
I'm
say-
gonna say right now, I don't eat McDonald's very often, but I got the itch today for some reason. I drove by it and it was just like, oh yeah, give it to me.
It wasn't the thing of watching what was it, Super Size Me,
No,
which basically just made everyone want to go and get a McDonald's immediately
yeah,
afterwards.
it's like what they say when you watch The Sopranos, you just want to light up the whole time because everyone's always smoking on that show. Yeah,
I got that. To be honest, I got that with The Exorcist as well. I'd forgotten that has a sort of very madman thing where it's like, we're worried about your child.
I've got to have
everyone
is
huffing in the kid's face.
Syringe in one hand, 20-pack of Marlboro in the other.
Yeah, and it's like respectable members of society. What is it? Have you seen Welcome to Horror? Have you ever seen Thank You for Smoking?
No.
Oh no.
Oh, that's a great movie about a tobacco lobbyist, and he talks about how nowadays the only people that smoke in movies are supervillains and Europeans or something like that. I just butchered that line, but it's something like
that. So, Chris, have you watched anything in the last week?
Well, I haven't managed to do any horror because that's been a little hard to get in. We did watch American Pie, the reunion, while we were doing some other jobs, and I think Shelley was typically horrified by it. I do it, yeah. So I won't say much about it. It's just quite ridiculous and a lot ruder than I remembered them being. But that might just be, just my bad memory.
Is now.
Yeah.
Was it
parent mode?
I know it's terrible. It changes everything.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So yeah. I don't highly recommend it, but it was amusing for a little while.
Well, I'll put that on the maybe list.
Adam, what have you been watching since we last met?
I've watched. I'm about halfway through catching up on Watchmen.
Okay.
Which I'm sticking with, mostly because someone I know is fully up to date on it and is quite happy for me to keep throwing theories at him and going, yes, no, yes. And I'm just pleased with my hit rate. I'm and every time, well, you worked that out quicker than I did. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Detective work going on here. But no, that's been that's pretty good. And then for no apparent reason this morning, I watched Deep Star 6, which is an old underwater monster movie from 1989, the year of underwater monster movies, because that came out and Leviathan came out and the Abyss.
Poor man's Leviathan.
Yes,
which is the poor man's Abyss.
Yeah, so I've really sunk low down the thing. But
I believe isn't there a Roger Corman deep sea monster movie?
There's
around this time.
I think that's because I think there's one. What is it? Evil Rising or something like that as well.
That sounds right.
Time. And that might be the Corman one. But
y'all need to do a quadruple feature.
I mean, the thing is,
from quality to shit in one fell swoop.
It will reduce. Probably best to start with the Abyss, so that as you become, as the time progresses and your critical facilities are loosening somewhat, shall we say, by the end when you get to the real crap, you're like, do you know what? That's probably on a par with the Abyss. But then I'm utterly smashed. So
yeah.
But that was
walk through life on that.
Yeah. But I think that was also wanting to. That's one of those ones that I remember the poster being in Blockbuster or in Ritzy Video or the local video shop, where it was like that just fascinated me, and then I finally actually got around to watching it. Only sort of however many years, like 30 odd years later. But yeah, I mean, it passed the time, and I don't think that it was disturbing for Ted. So, in fact, when the monster started clawing Greg Evigan, he pissed himself laughing. So,
that's a good sign.
Definitely got your sense of humour, that young lad.
Oh yeah.
So did you say the title was Deep Star 6?
Yes.
And so, what's the relevance of that?
That's the name of the underwater missile base that a group of people are building. They blow up a cavern that releases a an underwater arthropod.
And what Adam's trying to say right now is it doesn't fucking matter, actually.
No, it's basically they went. We're going to call it the Abyss. Someone's already done that. We're going to call it Leviathan. Same problem with that. What about Evil Rising, Corman? Oh, for fuck's sake! Right, just call it Deep Star 6. That's in the script. I know that's in the script.
Deep Star 7.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've not seen Deep Star 1 to 5, so maybe I would have appreciated it more if I had it.
You should call up every few video stores out there left today. See if they have Deep Star 1 through 5 available.
Yeah, because I watched 6 and I don't know what's happening. You know, I want to know Miguel Ferrer's backstory. And although it does feature just one of the best or funniest on-screen deaths I've seen in a long time, which is they had a anti-shark spear that basically fills you full of with compressed air, and someone backed onto one that someone was holding, and it just and then their tit exploded and it went everywhere. But yeah,
sounds
other
good.
than that,
worth it just for that.
Yeah, other than that, just a big crab film.
Nice. Oh, big crab. You, sir, are a massive crab.
Yes.
So, Bobby, what?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, you look confused by that. It's
Dr. Terrible's House of Horrible.
That's it.
Oh God, that show's so good.
It is amazing.
So I'd like to thank you guys from Texas to the UK for Coogan. Is it Steve Coogan on that show?
Yes. Yeah.
Just him in general on that show. What have I been watching? So I came across this list recently online that was like, the best horror of the 2010s, I believe. And I was like, I bet I haven't seen many of these, because if it's past 2000, we'll leave it at 2000. If it's past 2000, I'm not in any kind of hurry for whatever reason. But I started going through the Amazon and queuing up different things. And I only got to one of them. You know, there's things like The Demon, which I haven't seen yet, and I can't think of any more. But anyway, there's a Mexican film I just watched that actually came out, I believe, in 2017, but it was just released here in the States, called Tigers Are Not Afraid.
Oh, I have
that.
heard of this. Yeah.
It's pretty heavy. Would not call it fun. It's very well done. If you like things like City of God, have you seen the Brazilian film City of God? It kind of reminded me of like a Guillermo del Toro twist on the City of God kind of context. So I look like I'm piquing Adam's interest. Adam's the one that likes the very for lack of a better word, fucked up things of you three.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Talking to you then.
I like to feel I fulfill that role on this show.
Yes. Yeah. It's a important Jungian archetype, the guy that likes fucked up things. But it's basically, it's more or less a fairy tale about this group of orphans in Mexico, and all their parents have been more or less kidnapped and slaughtered by the cartel. So they're kind of digging their way through all the rubble and sleeping outside and things. And this one child in the movie, orphan child, ends up stealing a phone and a gun of one of the main cartel guys, and then they're after them. And there's a little girl with 3 pieces of chalk, and they're each like 3 wishes. My description's not doing this justice at all, as I see the blank looks on your faces. But it's very highly acclaimed, and it piqued my interest. And I watched it with my wife the other night, and we got done and completely silent through the whole thing. And she turned to me and said, "Well, thank you for that." And then, that was a fun holiday romp.
Yeah.
So I've just looked up the trailer, and it says it's a Shudder exclusive, and it's got a quote here from Stephen King saying, "This is one terrific film, both tough and touching. 2 minutes in, I was under its spell." Now
it's very good.
I think
Yeah.
if you buy Stephen King like a pencil topper, he will claim that you're the future of horror.
Yeah.
So it's
So-
like
so I was wondering-
it's like getting Snoop on your single. It's
Yeah. We should
not
spam-
actually.
We should spam his email with this episode of the
Yes.
your podcast. This is the best goddamn horror podcast I've ever heard.
Stephen King.
And I wrote Tommy Knockers.
I wrote Sometimes They Come Back. That's I still maintain that is what they should be doing with any Stephen King adaptation now. Is just because of from the author of It, rather than a Stephen King film on Pet Sematary. They should just roll it back to even more and more obscure ones, and just be like, just from the author of The Mangler,
from the guy who had something to do with Dreamcatcher.
From the bloke who pretended to be someone else and brought you the Shawshank Redemption.
They should do that. They should do that.
So you'd say it was still a good film, even with that.
Yeah, it's a very good. It's honestly one of the better films I've seen all year. But again, I don't really keep up with the new stuff as much as I'd like to. But however, it's one of those ones where probably one watch is plenty. Except maybe if you're Adam.
Or possibly Chris.
It might turn into a Christmas classic for him.
Well, like Requiem for a Dream is for Chris.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's almost a good segue, because it turns out in The Exorcist, or at least I think, if I put it right, the mother is the mother from Requiem.
Yeah.
And I didn't recognise her in anything else, but I have a sense that she must have been in other things since, if she was in this.
Yes, her name's Ellen Burstyn, and at one point, apparently, she had her own sitcom for one season.
Okay,
but in that's
a bit random.
One season.
Yeah.
She's got 160 acting credits on IMDb, so she's been busy. But
no, she's been around. Sorry,
that sounds like an aspersion that you're casting on this poor lady now.
Well, I'm only doing it.
Like
I'm
a
casting
record.
that aspersion on Chris McNeil, not Ella Burstyn. I do have to say that bit though in The Exorcist where Reagan's going, "Oh, you're gonna get with Burke, aren't you?" And it's like, I really don't think that's Burke's flavour. To be honest, the way he's portrayed in this, If she's trying to pull Burke, she's barking up the wrong tree.
I don't want to derail here, but I got to point this out before we get to the next thing we talk about. I'm a fan of the new YouTube format for you guys. It's totally, I like it. There's always a but though.
Yeah.
It does stifle my fantasy. That's a really strong word.
Yeah. Where are you going with that?
My visual of when I listen to you guys on just the headphones. My imagining that Chris is tied up like Marcellus Wallace / Alex from Clockwork Orange.
I'm sure we could arrange some sort of design.
Make him watch these obscure horror movies. And on that note, I do want to ask Chris this, because okay, you guys have been doing this for what, like 2 years now, 3 years?
3 years.
Into third,
3 years coming up.
We've been pulled in for 3, but yeah.
What episode is this?
63.
Yeah.
Right on. For Chris specifically, because the whole concept of, correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole concept of this is welcome to horror, right? Meaning you are the horror, for lack of a better word, horror virgin. Noob. Okay, yes, that's more appropriate actually. On the adventure so far, how are you feeling about the genre in general?
Well, yeah, that is a good question. I think it's been fascinating to see just how wide-ranging the horror genre can be and what appeals to different people. And I was fascinated to begin with by the philosophy, I suppose, of horror. And yeah, I suppose what stands out to different people, and how I think when I started, I imagined that most people would want to be as scared as possible, and yet it turns out that most people don't necessarily like being that scared, and that just is me that enjoys that part of it, or being as messed up as you can be. So yeah, because there's a lot more comedy throughout horror than I sort of realized.
Because these guys will be like, here's Critters, now here's The Exorcist. You're like, well, these are not the same films. So on that note, I mean, I'm assuming you didn't really grow up with horror movies that maybe the same way that Adam and Lee did. Do you actually? Because we're kind of, I would imagine we're kind of immune, I guess, or we don't necessarily find them scary. Like, are they scary to you as a grown man for the first time seeing them?
Yeah, so no, and I was really hoping that we were going to find something that would be, and I guess it is more the psychological elements to it that add that depth. Whereas when you're younger, you can be terrified of something that you don't understand, and as Leah said in a few episodes, once you know what goes on behind the scenes, it's very hard to fully immerse yourself in a way that is actually like, I in any way believe what I'm seeing.
That and we're all jaded, cynical 30, 40-year-old, unimpressionable man children now. So it doesn't.
I think that's worryingly true.
But I think there are, some films, they still do a good job of drawing you in such a way that, you're appreciating the darkness still, I think.
Sure.
So even though it's not scary in the way that I would like to be able to experience again, it still certainly has an effect.
Sure.
That's both. It's a combination of enjoyable and eerie. I suppose that's perhaps the best way I think of it now.
Right on.
It's really if the stuff lingers, I think.
Yeah.
Because you don't. It isn't necessarily now that it's like it scared the shit out of you at the time, but if it plays on your mind.
Right.
Like days afterwards or weeks later, and you're going, what the fuck was that about? Or just a quick sort of like, I think that's the best you can hope for, really.
Yeah. So if rather than keeping you up at night as it would when you were a kid, it scans in your brain all day when you're at work. Like, what the what? Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, it resonates crazy. In a different way where you're not necessarily scared of it, but it's also like has an effect in that manner.
I think that's why we saved this evening's movie, as we say, for 3 years of recording now, because this to me is the pinnacle of horror. Considering it was 1973 and we've come so far since. This film for me is. I did see it very young and it did literally scare the piss out of me, as it did with a lot of people. But watching it back now, although I don't get that same feeling. I just can't get over how I say to Jennifer when we finish watching it, still how head and shoulders over anything else this film is. So that's why we'd saved it. Because I was like, if anything is actually going to scare him, it's going to be this. Or if anything is really going to, as you say, play on your mind for days after and resonate, this I think would be the one, really.
You guys are about to revoke my horror fan card. So just brace yourself. I'm gonna come clean right here on Welcome to Horror. I had never sat down and watched this movie front to back in one sitting until last night. So for all intents and purposes, let's just say last night was the first time I watched The Exorcist. Now, through osmosis and through seeing it on, look, I was raised Catholic, okay? Like when I was a kid, like we don't fuck around with demons and Ouija boards and all that shit. Like it scared the shit out of me. Even as a child, I remember watching the documentary about the boy, I guess that this movie was based on.
Yeah,
It's kind of an amalgam, I believe. But and I remember watching some documentary. I was probably about 8 years old, and they were talking about how they heard the boy would hear like scratches on the walls and things. And then, of course, later that night at like 10:30, 11, my father's outside scratching on the walls, which is just like explains so many psychological scarrings for me in my love of the genre now, I guess. But I just wanted to get that out there. I had never seen this movie in one sitting until I watched it last night by myself around the Christmas tree, drinking Chianti like an insane person. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
At that point, I also have to say that I don't think the apple falls far from the tree. In so much as your dad was doing that. I thought you were just going to say, there was like the tree against the side of the house or something like that. No, my dad was doing it deliberately.
Oh, no. For 100%.
Very similar relationship with my own father. It's like, I'm going to show you this. Hopefully it will shit you up. And if it doesn't, I'll make sure it does later on.
See, I saw The Shining at like probably 7 or 8, and that didn't really do much like as far as scare me, but something about the devil or demons and all that stuff, like that was my thing where I was like,
I think that's the thing, is I think quintessentially The Exorcist is a Catholic horror movie.
100%.
That's the target audience who it absolutely affects. Because I think I might be wrong on this, but I'm sure there's a quote from John Landis where he said he watched it and it was like, I mean, I'm lapsed Jewish, I didn't care. So it's nice, his opinion was, this demon's not coming for me. I don't believe in him. So
one of the few times in history that's worked out for someone.
Yes, true enough. For once, I wasn't the target.
Right. What are you drinking there, Bobby?
I'm drinking Independence Brewing Company. I'm not trying to plug Texas, but it is called Native Texas. I think someone left it in my fridge, to be honest with you, but that's the best beer there is, I think. Free.
Excellent. I am side down and drinking Budweiser.
In the koozie as well.
I got a box of them for you.
So I've not watched anything. So as we've already kind of started off down that road, so 1973's Exorcist, as we said, written by William Peter Blatty.
You've got to say it like Mark Kermode though. When it's William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist.
Now that is actually a really good documentary. I need to.
The Fear of God. Yeah. Because this will be the astounding moment. Claire watched The Exorcist with me.
What? No. Surely not.
And basically, she was absolutely fine with it because of how much it is popular culture now. How much of it is parodied? How much? The only thing that Claire was unaware of was the first hour and 15 minutes. She just thought the film was two priests in a bedroom exercise a child.
So
I said that last episode, right? Because that's absolutely what I thought, and it turns out I hadn't watched it either.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I watching? Am I even watching the right film?
But the best bit is,
like, what's going on?
Claire did say that the first part of it was like watching Columbo. In so much as she said, particularly the dinner party sequence, which is very Columbo, but she was like, there's far too many minor characters. It's obviously set in the 70s. There's some amazing fashions going on. There's plenty of people who are kind of suspects to something that doesn't have a suspect.
What if instead of sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's cool. But it's kind of like, there's so many sort of people in it that you kind of feel will have a factor who don't. They're just sort of to build the world, essentially, like that. And then, what's his name? Detective Kinderman turns up and he's just Columbo. He even at one point mentions his fucking wife. It's like, I like to go to the movies. My wife, she doesn't. Would you like to come?
And then the way he gets the autograph for himself instead of his daughter. And with a little bit of a smile. It's all a bit like...
Yeah. It is. It's Columbo invested. Yeah. It's Kolchak. in a way.
Well,
It's
when you were
Columbo
saying that, I was
investigates.
wanting. I was imagining Peter Falk playing the William O'Malley character of Father Dyer,
Oh,
which would make a very different film.
Oh, that would have been good though. Oh, I'm just going off on a reverie now that Peter Falk should have been in it, but that's
just ruined The Exorcist for everyone. And then cast Peter Falk.
This is just completely off topic, but I know that there is a thing where people have asked this, is where people are saying, does Columbo have a glass eye, or is Peter Falk's glass eye acting the part of a proper eye in Columbo? So is Columbo a Cyclops or not? And and I think I'm pretty certain that the police won't hire you if you've got, just from a gun perspective. I think if you've got one eye, they're probably not going to hire you. Yeah, but Claire's saying you only need one eye to fire a gun because you do it like that. It's like, no, you don't.
She has got a good point.
Yeah, but
we've got a resident Texan in.
Wait.
Why are we discussing guns? We've got an
That's true.
Columbo never fires a gun, does he?
No, in fact, there's a whole thing where it's like
He's like Batman.
Yeah, there's a whole episode where he's pestered by a woman who's like saying you haven't been to the gun range for 8 years or something like that, so you need to go and get that done. And it's like, he doesn't need a gun. He has his mind and his dirty Mac and his dog.
And he's got a load of backup.
Yeah. Also, he could just throw the cigar in. If it really kicked off, throw the cigar in their face and then go for the balls. That's what he strikes me as,
You're so Romford.
Yeah.
So The Exorcist.
Oh, sorry, we went off.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, so also as well, it's worth mentioning, so we all watch different versions. So Chris, you watched the theatrical, Adam, you watched the director's, and I watched the version you've never seen. Which version did you watch, Bobby?
The theatrical.
Okay, cool.
So can we highlight the differences? Should that be done now or after or during?
I mean, it's bits and pieces. I think the director's cut spends a bit more time in Iraq at the start, with the archaeological dig.
That seemed fairly long, way longer than I thought.
Yeah, to me it was, but I was watching the director's cut, so I think it was just a wee bit longer anyway. But also, it's sort of just bits and pieces here and there. But the main thing is the spider walk sequence, where there is a scene where I think it's when they discover. It's when someone comes to the door and says that Burke has been killed, the director, and they say, he was found with his head twisted right round. That sequence just ends in the theatrical version, but in the director's cut, Reagan then comes down the stairs like arched over, like a sort of gymnast comes down the stairs with like backwards on her hands and feet, but sort of arched up and weird.
Now, I remember that from the director's cut, but in the version you've never seen, she does that and then opens her mouth and blood comes gushing out. Is that in the director's one as well?
I think the director's cut is now the version that you've never seen.
Oh,
I think they are the same, to be honest, or pretty much. But yeah, no, blood comes out as well, and I think it's just they found more material to do, because there's like the director's cut, which I think is like sort of late 90s or something like that. And then the version you've never seen, which is essentially the director's cut, just with the stuff's integrated better, and they found like they've made everything smoother so it doesn't sort of transition badly when you get to the bits that are off cuts.
Yeah.
So they've mastered everything properly and graded everything right. So, but
I think the only thing I noticed massively is so firstly at the very beginning, instead of it opening in northern Iraq, you just get like 2 minutes of a scene of their street in Washington, with the light going out before they go to Iraq, which I don't remember. And there's actually, I think it's a really good thing it was cut out because it kind of damaged the film. There's an extra scene where you see her going and getting some medical tests before you do in the theatrical. So there's a whole section where she goes and has some other psychological, no, they are medical tests, sorry, but yeah, they basically come to the decision that maybe she should go and see a shrink. But it's kind of out of the blue.
Give her Ritalin. Which I love
They
the
give a
fact
Ritalin,
that that's
yeah.
I just love the fact that it's the 70s. Give your kid Ritalin. That's it.
Yeah. That'll
It's
fix it.
Times have changed.
That's unfortunately.
Although to be fair, if your child was displaying some of her symptoms, you probably would be tempted to give her Ritalin.
I think. I mean,
I
like
haven't seen many children act like her.
I mean, this is the thing that. Well, I mean, there's the bit where, because I can't remember, because obviously I've watched the director's cut, and there's the bit where the psychiatrist is saying, "Does she swear?" Which I don't know if that's in the theatrical version or something.
No,
but basically,
none of that section is that entire.
But Ritalin, the new Jesus.
Yeah. Your child demonic, block it up with Ritalin. That'll do. But in fact, if a portal to hell opens, if you throw Ritalin or even Tixie Licks in it, it will just heal up like an old scab, and reality is fine again.
What's a Tixie Lick?
Tixie Licks is a English cough medicine for children that possibly doesn't even exist anymore. But
knock them out.
All right.
Night Nurse.
Well, about Night Nurse.
It's
now,
like
Adam,
by Sly and Robbie.
You're in the medical industry, is that correct?
No, I'm just a keen amateur. No, I'm not in the medical world. No.
Oh, never
He
mind.
can sort you out with all sorts of helpful.
But Claire's family are entirely made up of nurses.
I just want to know,
vets,
so because you guys brought it up, the parts where she had all those weird, like giant robot machines.
Yes.
Are those real? Do y'all know if those are real machines?
Apparently so. They're all.
I'm assuming they look a little less industrial nowadays.
No, well, I think they might just be an MRI scanner with its clothes off.
Right.
They haven't sort of
this big horrifying jointed arm.
So it's less scary. I mean, there is
Jennifer. I think
I'm getting cancer right now just being in the same room as that thing.
Yes.
Yeah, like the MRI now is just like a tube, and they put you on a bed, and it basically wheels inside it. But yeah, that is effectively the thing where they laid her down and put a needle in her neck, and then they had the two on either side and one that came down with a target on it. Yeah, that's now just a tube, and you just go inside it and it does its thing, and like it's
just
nowhere
hums a little bit.
Yeah, and that's what I said to Jennifer. I was like, yeah, screw having that done in the 70s. That looked terrifying.
The weird thing is at certain points it does feel like, so are you checking the child or preparing her to go into space? It feels like space camp. Like it's like
it could be like exactly in a montage, or like an astronaut training montage.
Yeah.
Like, you got to go with the jointed MRI terrifying arm scene. Splice that into there.
And the only thing that's missing is a centrifuge where she's just being whirled around.
The underwater no gravity simulation.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just actually while we're on that bit, here's the interesting thing, because I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stuff and bullshit and the curse of the Exorcist and everything else like that. The Exorcist does feature a real life murderer in it. And it's that sequence. It's during the medical tests. There's the guy who's doing the thing where she gets the needle in her neck, the angiogram.
I know, I watched it like that.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, you're not good with needles, are you?
No.
So that's audition out then. But there's a guy who's doing that who is a genuine radiologist, and the reason he's in it is because they were filming in a hospital and everything. But you can tell who it is because he's got like a leather-studded bracelet, which looks a bit out of place on a guy in a white coat. And he basically killed a film journalist. He picked him up in a bar. They went home for what the journalist thought was a one-night stand. The other bloke, like full of coke and booze, didn't like the idea of him leaving and sort of did a Jeffrey Dahmer, hit him over the head with a frying pan, and then stabbed him to death. Yeah, what is his name?
Was this before or after The Exorcist?
This is after The Exorcist. This is 77. A guy called Paul Bateson, who actually turns up he's interviewed in Mindhunt, the series 2, at one point. But he's also possibly a serial murderer because they did link him to 6 murders of gay men in New York who were found dismembered in the Hudson River.
Holy shit.
So he's like the Deep Star 6 of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah. He's seen Dahmer. He thought, it's much in the same way as Deep Star 6 clearly watched Alien and thought, well, we could do that, but we won't do it in space. We'll do it underwater. Clever.
Right.
And I think that's pretty. He's Deep Star Dahmer. And so there's a genuine horror right off the bat in The Exorcist. Is that this guy is, and the thing is, he never confessed to it, and they've never never solved it. So it remains an unsolved case. But he's basically on the police records. He's like, well, we're pretty sure it's this guy. We just never got him to confess, and he's locked up anyway. And certainly he got locked up, and they stopped. So. Wow. That's a fairly good convincer. But weirdly enough, that then the murders that he probably committed, then William Friedkin did the movie Cruising, and it's based on those murders, the police investigation into those murders. So, and actually, from what I guess, because let's face it, William Friedkin's off the fucking chart when it comes to being a loony. I believe he actually went and interviewed Paul Bates in prison in a sort of, so if you were going to do those murders, how would you have done them? Just if, I'm not saying anything, and then later on said, oh no, he told me that he did it. It's like, yes, didn't he? Yeah, he did, didn't he? Go on.
It doesn't surprise me from Friedkin because he's a fucking nut job.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, this film is an absolute testament to the man's genius, but how many people's lives did he ruin to make it? Which,
Well, we watched again. I had to show Claire, I wanted to just show her at the start of the documentary. So we saw Mark Commode when his suit fitted him, which is quite an impressive moment. But also,
Mark Commode.
I had to show her William Friedkin because I'd spent most of the movie saying William Friedkin did this and William Friedkin did that, and
I did exactly the same with Jennifer.
and it's like William Friedkin basically could be done technically for assault. William Friedkin could be arrested for psychological damages. But he popped up, and it's basically, Claire said, well, he looks like Garth Marenghi, and he sounds like Donald Trump. And it's like, yeah.
Sounds about, yeah. That's the recipe for insanity.
Exactly. But that's the thing. When he's sitting there, and it's like, yeah, he does sound like Donald Trump. It's just this. It's the same voice, pretty much, and it's sort of, it doesn't sort of make anything he's saying feel any the less.
Isn't there a legend in which he like fired a gun like right by the ear of Demi? What's his name?
Jason Miller. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, Jason, just to get the reaction.
Yeah,
like there's all kinds of stuff like that, which is interesting for such an eccentric, barrier-breaking director. He also did direct 1994's Blue Chips, the college basketball movie starring Nick Nolte and Shaquille.
Wow,
which I thought was worth mentioning. All right,
definitely. No, we like that because I think, he set off guns. He set off a gun next to Jason Miller's head, and Jason Miller just turned around and said, I'm an actor. If you say act surprise, I'll do it. You don't need to fire guns near me head. Ellen Burstyn got a permanent spinal damage because there's the bit where Reagan slaps her and she...
So this is the mother, the actress.
Yeah. And when Reagan slaps her and she falls back and then nearly gets killed by the chest of drawers... basically it was like, how are we going to get her to fall back? Well, what we'll do is we'll tie a rope round her and we'll get the biggest fucking stagehand we've got on the set to pull her over. And this guy just wham. So she goes back onto the base of her spine and actually got permanent fucking spinal damage from being in The Exorcist.
But they kept the shot, and it's the one that's in there.
Yeah, that's why she looks so shocked. I thought someone's just dislodged her back.
Brutal.
I think it's the same with I think they were saying it's the same with the shot where Jason Miller gets hit with the bright green vomit. They'd heated that up so it was super hot. So his look of shock is genuine because he wasn't, and it burned him.
It was supposed to hit him like in the chest or something, right?
Yeah. And they went straight for the face.
And evidently he was very upset about it.
Yeah.
Now, was that ectoplasma, or what was that supposed to be like in the world of The Exorcist?
I had the same question. Her vomit and her spit and everything is all like really strange,
looking.
goopy. Yeah, nothing looks real.
Radioactive.
Yeah, Claire actually asked the question: is that an attack or is that a byproduct of the possession? Where it's like, is she doing
projectile vomit?
Yeah, is she projectile vomiting to piss Karis off, or is it just?
I thought that because of the way she is, it seemed to fit.
It does. It does have.
It seems too calibrated to be accidental.
Yeah.
Because it's like a very precise stream of green.
Yeah, it's a funnel.
Because I think if you were gonna projectile vomit, you'd probably try and turn away slightly so as not to hit the person in the face. So therefore,
if you're a demon.
But that's why then the demon would do it deliberately.
I mean, he's already, Pazuzu has said quite a few near to the knuckle off colour things, old man. So I'm kind of thinking it'd then be, excuse me,
off colour.
I don't think
if you're tied down by the wrists and ankles, like to still be able to physically attack someone. I think,
Chris, you're tied down by the wrists and ankles as we speak. Do you feel that you could?
I would love to projectile vomit on.
Depends what you've had to drink.
I haven't seen his hands or feet this entire feed, so
probably won't.
I'm going to go with it. So I take back what I said. I'm still going to live the fantasy here.
The ball gag only comes off so he can contribute.
Right.
Yeah.
He's fully Stockholmed at this point, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, he's well.
I'm enjoying it now.
You're paying to the hill, aren't you, Chris?
I hadn't realised as well until watching it back this time. It's funny how I don't know if you guys get it the same thing. Like you can watch a film 20 or 30 times, but when you watch it back about a show, you start to notice lots of things you hadn't previously necessarily spotted. And I noticed this time that how little background, like there's not, apart from obviously Tubular Bells, there's hardly any score in this at all. It's an almost silent movie in between the dialogue. And it just makes it so tense and so.
It's very documentary. I think it also just helps that it's 70s stuff always has that sort of grit to it anyway.
Right.
I was thinking
that was almost a trope, not a trope, but it was a style of the early 70s horror because it's like they all had a pretty iconic like soundtrack or score, like that one thing. And then that intensifies because they use it so sparingly. And I don't know if this is an iconic example of the soundtrack, but if you watch like my other favorite from this era is The Changeling with George C. Scott.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And there's like barely any music in that either, but when it plays, it's very profound.
Yes. The Changeling is that's a fantastic film. We might have to do that, Chris, because I think that'll be one.
Your reactions did suggest such.
You would totally love that. As someone who loves haunted house movies particularly,
and it's a mystery.
Total standout movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Incredible. And it's George.
That's interesting. If it's a similar style, so I thought that the style of this film was unique. I was trying to think, where does it fit in with others that I've seen of that era? And so I thought it might help if I give a bit of background. So I thought I had seen it, and as you said, Adam, it's probably because it's been redone. I've seen the comedies, and because it's just so well known. And what I remember. In school, I remember people talking about it and saying about all the myths, or at least some of them surrounding it, like how people died on set, and I'd never heard of such a thing before. I was like, what, what, really, real people died because of the film? That sounds crazy. But I still never saw the film, certainly at that age. I thought I'd seen it later. But yeah, and so when watching it, like I was surprised at how subtle a lot of the film is all the way through, and like you said, how many different characters there are in it that aren't necessarily important. Like there's just a lot more going on in it, and I really liked that aspect to it. So I actually found when it was all kicking off that did, and it might be because I've seen the comedies, it's hard to see that as realistic as it probably looked at the time. And especially, and this could be the parent head on again, but the way that she's talking did feel a bit, I suppose, uncomfortable to me. Like, and the things she's doing, obviously with the cross and so on. And it's like, but that is what I remembered, because I've totally forgotten about some of the scenes that had been talked about. But that is what made it so well known, I suppose. Like, it was talked about in, you know, such serious terms.
Well, the
by
graphic
people had said anything. Yeah.
The graphic nature of the language and those particular scenes, definitely. I mean, they still have a bit of a, you know, if you were to sort of stumble into, if you were just to see that like on a drama or in a film, you'd still be a bit, oh bloody, you know. Even now, 1973, you know, that's pretty sort of, you know, that is strong.
And those are the things that have been, like you said, been parodied and referenced, and those are the things people talk about on the surface when talking about this film. You got to remember too, like, as disturbing as those things are, they're not all that out of the realm of just horror in general. This movie, though, was nominated. One, it was, I want to say, adjusted for inflation, was the highest grossing horror film of all time.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on whether you count Jaws. Apparently, that's the. If you count Jaws as a horror film, which I can kind of see, but as a straight,
I would have thought. Well, certainly. Well, you'd think Jennifer would, but
she would. Yeah, she's got shark phobia. But
yeah,
fair.
But as a sort of deliberate horror film,
right?
You know, certainly like R-rated.
My point is, like, it's very the arc of Father Karras is like straight like Academy Award worthy for whatever that means. And that's one thing I never picked up on from watching this movie through osmosis, not having sat down and watched it in one sitting. It's like, oh my God, like I always knew the ending where I always knew that. But like the whole thing where he's lost his faith and like he's this more like secular Jesuit priest that's more into science at this point. It's very skeptical. And there's a great line I wrote down where Father Dyer finally shows up. Father Karras says, do you want to hear the background of the case, Father? And he just replies, why? Because do you want to hear the background of the case is such a like scientific question to ask. But at this point, it was just like, dude, you called me. I'm like the Billy Badass Exorcist guy. We don't need to fuck around with all the details here. It's just time to take care of this, right?
Yeah.
It's like I don't need to know about your psychological analysis of what's going on here. We just need to get some holy water and fuck shit up.
Yeah. No, it's very true. I think also because that's the thing is I like it's something that I've always had a bit of a problem with, and it's just because I think it is just because I've always kind of preferred The Omen, just because The Omen is a set of coincidences that if you're on the outside of it, you're just going to go to someone you're imagining it.
Yeah.
Whereas if your daughter's head turns green and spins round on itself, you can probably get a few more people to take your shit seriously.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do
sure
like...
it's not just mental illness?
Yeah, that's the thing.
We're sure.
It's like when they're saying, what was it? When it's like, oh, well, we think, it might be, frontal lobe epilepsy. She was spasming and that's why the bed was shaking. It's like, fucking no. That is not someone having a spasm. That's like riding the fucking bed around the room.
It's like the opposite of WebMD. So if I were like to go on WebMD and say, my elbow hurts, it'd be like, you have elbow cancer. So it's like the reverse of that.
Yeah. But sort of watching it again, it is basically they exhaust everything and then just say, try a priest, and it's kind of like, it's quite nice that because thinking about it, if your doctrine is scientific, you're a doctor, you're not going to go, oh, that's supernatural. You are going to rationalize it so many ways before you're going to admit defeat and say, well, phone the Vatican. So,
and even when the doctor is pitching that idea to her, he tries to scientifically explain it like this placebo effect type thing.
Yeah,
going
like
on.
it all just affect her.
Like, oh well, it's they believe this, but here's what it is scientifically. But if the victim believes it,
Yeah.
you can reverse that.
They sort of put it in voodoo
If it works,
terms,
it works, kind of thing. Yeah,
where it's just sort of
Which is actually he did that doc. Did we already talk about the documentary that Friedkin did a couple years ago, where he actually goes? It's called God damn it. It's called The Devil and Father Amorth.
Oh, right, okay.
And he goes, it's pretty good for what it is, but he goes and documents an actual exorcist, and kind of, it's a documentary directed by William Friedkin, and he goes and kind of investigates the phenomenon in general, and then goes and films an actual exorcist. And I must say, it's not nearly as exciting as it's portrayed in The Exorcist. So it's very long and drawn out, where you're just like, okay, what's gonna happen? I can hear you guys.
Sorry.
Is that you, Lee?
Sorry. Yeah, it's the
Your
clock.
Ebenezer Scrooge's grandfather.
But it does add to the atmosphere. So
It does.
The ghost of Christmas present on their way.
Sorry, I apologise. Sorry, it's done now.
He usually comes down in his long night shirt with his cap on and a candle.
I thought I was having an aneurysm.
Well, that's all right, because immediately you've gone to a scientific explanation for it, so that's fine.
Right.
But I mean, again, I know that there's a good interview. I think it's either, because there's two genuine priests in the film. The guy who plays Father Dyer and the guy who plays what is it? Because one of them is, the weirdest thing is with it. Where is he?
No,
I've got it written.
That seems odd though. So they're actual priests, and
Tom.
Why did they agree to be in the film?
I think because
it's the best advert that the Catholic Church has ever had.
If there's one thing that Catholics love, it's money.
It's interesting. Okay.
But also, this was the thing, is that they did say that, like, church attendances after The Exorcist came out really, really picked up.
It's like the thing when you make war movies, military enrollment goes up. Because there
is that thing as well where they actually said there were people. It was, I can't remember which film it was, but the army were setting up in cinema foyers. So people were coming out of whatever it was, and sort of like were really pumped up. Right. And then signing up to join the army. Like, fucking hell.
Public relations.
Yeah, it's just quite but I mean, so yeah, it's Father Tom. But the weird thing is like Father Dyer, like William O'Malley, he looks like the guy you'd hire. They both look like actors, and they both look like they're the actor you'd pick to play a priest. So, it's obviously worked quite well, because like Father Dyer is definitely the one where it's like, we need a quite groovy priest who's okay with the fact that his mate's lost his faith and he's brat ass most of the time. And
similarly, when he's playing the piano in front of that group is just fantastic.
Yeah, like the Columbo party, as it should forever be known to be now.
Columbo party. Yeah. But I heard that Jack Nicholson was originally considered for the Jason Miller character.
Yeah,
really?
Which is just it just seems so terrible.
Yeah, I can't see. I really can't, because I think. But wasn't the take on it? So I can't remember who it was, whether it was Friedkin or someone else. But someone's take on it was Jack Nicholson is too demonic to play a priest.
Right.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Because I feel definitely that the one person where I kind of think is I can imagine Al Pacino. 70s Al Pacino, not shouting 90s onwards Al Pacino, but 70s Al Pacino could probably have played. Yeah.
Yeah. The calm, cool, collective 70s Pacino.
Yes.
The Michael Corleone era Pacino.
Yeah. That's the Pacino. That's the Alan Pacino that we're talking.
Scarface.
Yeah. Where you just get the impression that don't get high on your own supply, including possibly your own talent, Al. Because you've gone fucking mad, haven't you, mate? But which is it's nice to see. You know, you don't want someone to have to be tortured all their life. You know, it's like everyone ends up heading towards Jack Nicholson because, well, you might as well. At least he's enjoying himself. So
I don't like to call it madness. I like to call it soul liberation.
Yeah, just
Nice
suddenly it's like,
euphemism.
yeah, how many fucks am I giving today? None.
Exactly.
But but also there's another example of William Friedkin's madness. So you've got a real life priest, William O'Malley playing Father Dyer, and he's giving the last rites to Karras at the end. And they did a couple of takes, and William Friedkin wasn't happy with how he did it. So he said, "Can I have a word?" Took him to one side, slapped him full across the face, and then said, "Action." And yeah, William O'Malley's like in an interview, just like, "Yeah, you can see my hands are shaking. That's because I didn't want to be slapped again."
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, I understand getting the most out of your actors, but there is an element
There's
of
abuse.
Yeah, there is genuine abuse of technically a non-actor.
Yeah.
You know, you've hired him to be an actor. He's not an actor, and that's probably better because the Actors Union might have stepped in. But you know, he can only complain to his bishop at that point, and that's not going to happen. So
I don't think we get too many directors like that these days with the extreme measures. I don't see J.J. Abrams doing something like that.
Oh yeah,
I got data from the focus group over at Disney. This is what we've got to do today. That kind of thing.
I have been referring to him as Jabrams lately. It just annoys people at work, much in the same way as
it's called Lady Gaga. And
yes.
Like, what is that?
Lady Gaga. And also the one that really winds people up at work, which is when they say Bryan Cranston, you go, "Oh, from Malcolm in the Middle." Just, you know,
That's a great show.
Yeah, and they're just going Breaking Bad. Oh, I never saw it. You know, so yeah. But yeah, and it's like, I mean, similarly, it's like with The Shining. You know, basically, why don't you give Shelley Duvall a nervous breakdown to make the thing work? You know. And that's a Francis Ford Coppola quote where it's like there's very few genuinely dictatorial posts left in the world, but director is one of them.
Yeah.
And I think that Friedkin and Kubrick take that to heart, where it's like, you are my playthings, and I will have you killed if there is no.
Isn't
if it's not going to happen?
Werner Herzog is kind of who did the Nosferatu with
Klaus.
That's
Klaus
Herzog, yeah.
Yeah, that, believe me, I mean, Werner is insane, but that is why he works so well with Klaus, because he was insane too, and we were both plotting to murder each other, which is a genuine thing. There's a documentary,
right.
My Best Fiend, is just fantastic because it's just the relationship that they had. And oh my God, it's like, you know, basically him calling out. I think, what is it? At one point when they were doing Aguirre Wrath of God, Klaus Kinski said, "Fuck you, you're an idiot. I'm out of here." Got in a boat and drove off. And Herzog pulled a shotgun on him and basically said, "You can step out of the boat or go into the water." And it's sort of, but that was the thing that made Kinski respect him. I mean, you know, a shotgun in the face does tend to do that. You know, suddenly you develop a certain level of sort of respect at that point.
I hear he's particularly good in The Mandalorian. Obviously, I haven't seen it because it isn't legally available to watch in the UK yet. But I hear very good things.
Well,
what?
Yeah, no, I know. This is great. Okay, so The Mandalorian will be available to watch in the UK in March.
When Disney Plus launches.
Yeah. So we can't watch it over here right now.
Is that right, Lee?
Yeah. And obviously we're law-abiding citizens, so none of it.
Claire has just pointed out to me, though, she's playing The Sims over on the sofa, and you can now get the Baby Yoda in The Sims. It's one of the things you can buy.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys know the main arc
Yoda?
of that story already.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's one of those things where it's like I can't go on the internet without knowing something about it, because it's just it's to the point where it's like I'm going to watch it and just go, oh, now 1,001 memes are explained. All of a sudden.
It's like Memento.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to say, talking about directors getting the most out of their actors, and Friedkin particularly, and how nasty he was towards people. Apparently, he was really good with Linda Blair, and I'd forgotten just how astonishing she is in this for a 12-year-old. Like, I've always said it. Like,
is she actually 12?
Yeah, she was 12.
That was her age.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And like, kid actors always pull me out of stuff because it's not their fault. The kids, they've not had time to hone their craft. They're always terrible. It's always awkward. She is astonishing in this film. I can't believe, like, I know she did go on to have an acting career after, and she did some action films and stuff. But yeah, I thought she could have done
films.
Yeah.
I was thinking
what did she do?
Streets of Rage was the one. Was it
Love
Streets of Rage?
Streets of Rage,
Savage Streets.
Savage Streets,
that's the one. Streets of Rage is a song by Madball, but you know.
I got to ask you guys: have you seen The Exorcist II: The Heretic? John Borman's lucid fever dream of insanity.
Matthew Turd.
And what do you guys think about that one?
Well, to give you an inkling, we've decided the next episode after this, spoiler alert, we're doing The Exorcist 3, because we're jumping straight over to, because it's fucking wank.
Very good choice. That entire thing.
I mean, obviously we've established, yes, I like the weird shit. But I think the weirdest choice about the whole thing is just, well, everything. But it's a weird sort of thing. And Thingy's disowned it, hasn't he? William Peter Blatty disowns it and says that's not that. You know, it had nothing to do with me. They used characters that I created, but yeah. And I mean, surprisingly, obviously Linda Blair's in it, and Thingy's in it in flashback, I think, isn't he? Max von Sydow.
Yeah.
And of course, you've got the marvelous Richard Burton. Richard Burton being very Richard Burton, being very intense. But yeah, it's just all over the shop.
Real quick, I feel like I have a lot of like movie nerd friends and acquaintances that seem to suddenly like celebrate that film as this like aesthetic masterpiece. It's like, it's not even so bad it's good, it's so bad that it's good, then it's bad, then it's good again, and then it looks great, and like all this like weird rationalization. But at the end of the day, it's a shit movie.
Yeah.
It looks cool. I like that weird 70s lighting with like the weird what they thought technology would look like, but it doesn't actually like. But once you get over that, it's just like, all right, like I've seen enough. So now, you are going in spoiler to The Exorcist 3 next, right? Yep. Is that what I heard? Possibly no spoilers, but opinion spoiler. Possibly my second favorite 90s horror movie of all time after In the Mouth of Madness. So Exorcist 3 is a real treat. It's a real treat.
Exorcist 3, just because I didn't realize this. Has anyone seen The Ninth Configuration?
No.
Which
I don't think so.
Apparently not.
It's the second. I think it's William Peter Blatty's first film that he directs, but it's based on one of his books. And there was a book. Originally, it was a book called Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane, and then he rewrote it and re-released it as The Ninth Configuration and did a movie of it. Now, the plot of The Ninth Configuration is basically a man goes to a new head of a mental asylum for military personnel goes to this asylum, and basically his theory on sort of cure is to just let them run with their various illnesses. And so you get the first like maybe hour of the film is almost a screwball comedy, because basically it's like one of the guys is convinced that he's being held there by Nazis, so the new warden makes all the prisons, like the hospital staff, dress up as Nazi soldiers. Jason Miller is in it as a man who is doing an all-dog production of Hamlet, which is just brilliant because he keeps coming in all the way through, like just interrupting scenes, and it's just him coming in with 2 dogs and just going, "Look, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern."
Are you recommending this right now?
Yeah, I would recommend.
Okay,
I would recommend it. I'm not sure if it's Lee's cup of tea because it's not. Because the weird thing is it's not a horror movie, but it is. It then takes an exceedingly dark turn towards the end. But basically, yeah, it's all these sort of traumatized ex-military officers. But one of them is an astronaut. And it's meant to be the astronaut that Reagan says, "You're going to die up there," and then pisses on the carpet. And in the plot of the Ninth Configuration, this guy's in the asylum because he has a breakdown literally on the launch pad and doesn't want to go back into space. And basically the film has a lot of stuff about he's basically saying, well, if there's no God and I die up there, how I'm dying completely alone. And it's sort of all lots of questions of faith come up in it. There's a really good dream sequence where basically an astronaut finds Christ crucified on the moon, which is just an amazing shot, if nothing else.
I'll be watching that right after we're done here.
Yeah, it's like I say, the second half of the movie really takes a dark turn, and you begin to discover things about the new head of the asylum and stuff like that. And it's sort of, but basically, yeah, William Peter Blatty says that's The Exorcist 2, because it does have this thematic link of the astronaut who's in The Exorcist is the astronaut who's in that. And then Legion is the third. Right. So I know I've got the Ninth Configuration somewhere. It's probably at my mum's house still, but that was my intention. Is I thought I'll try and watch Ninth Configuration and Legion, even though, I mean, like I say, Jason Miller's in it. He's not playing Karras, obviously, but again, just William Peter Blatty just really liked Jason Miller, and like I say, he's great in it. And the first half of the movie is just piss funny because it's just lunatics taking over the asylum essentially, and like I say, the whole thing with the Shakespeare dogs is brilliant, especially when it's like, someone comes in and says, right, and he's pitching to Jason Miller, who's the director of the Dog Hamlet. And he's going, right, what about this for Hamlet? We'll get a Great Dane. And he's like, just get out. I'm not having it reduced to this, And yeah, it's just I would recommend it. And like I say, it's kind of now in my head, it's like, oh, so that's the Exorcist trilogy, not the. And obviously then, and then it gets complicated because you've got Dominion and what way around is it? It's Dominion prequel to The Exorcist or Exorcist the beginning.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I don't know if you're aware of this, Chris, but basically
this is getting deep.
It is, but they did prequels where Father Merrin first confronts the demon, because obviously the demon's meant to recognize him and know him, and but basically they got what is his name, Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver and then directed loads of sort of really good art films and stuff, and basically they hired him and said, right, we want you to do this prequel to The Exorcist, but you're going to do it properly because you're a grown-up and you do it, don't do spinning heads and sort of people throwing up and big possession stuff and things like that. It'd be just silly. We want to make it a serious, proper, dramatic film. And he was like, yeah, I'm on board with that. Went off and directed it, showed them the sort of work print or whatever like that. And they were like, oi, Goober, where's the vomiting? Where's the spinning heads and everything? So they then got Rennie Harlin in. They bumped him off it, got Rennie Harlin in to direct it and sort of make some new stuff. At this point, they've already they're spending an extra sort of couple of million because they've had to rehire everyone back to do the reshoots. Then that comes out and everyone's like, well, this is a bit shit, isn't it? And it's a pity because we heard what Paul Schrader was doing and that sounded like that could have been good. So then they got Paul Schrader they gave Paul Schrader a bit more money and said, can you finish doing the film you were doing? And so there's 2 versions of this prequel story available. They are really different. But yeah, and so
it's like Superman 2.
Yeah, it's like overly complicated. It's like Superman 2. Unfortunately, it doesn't feature a big thick guy with because that's just the key thing for Superman 2 for me.
Then I'm not watching it.
It doesn't have a big thick bloke going, who? So yeah, I'm not involved. Or Sarah Douglas. What are they playing at? So, but yeah, it's just it's a relentlessly complicated set of sequels and possible sequels and sequels in name, but not in anyone's head. It's like you have to go down the route where it's like, right, there's 2 Terminator films. Oh no, there's like 7. No, there's 2 Terminator films. All right, just leave it. So
I bought the box set a few years back, which is The Exorcist, the theatrical cut, The Heretic, and then Dominion and The Beginning. So I watched Dominion and The Beginning one night. I watched one, and the next night I watched the other. And came out at the end of 2 nights going, I don't understand how that was the same film. Like, it's 2 entirely different films. It's so massively different. Yeah, I don't know how they ultimately had the same idea and managed to come out with 2 such different movies. But yeah, I mean, I quite enjoyed them both. But again,
I mean, did y'all get the television show with Gina Davis over there?
Oh, what the Exorcist? I think it did. I think that appeared on Netflix. I never actually.
Yeah.
I know it was on
I didn't watch it.
I watched like the first 2 episodes. It didn't really didn't captivate me. It wasn't terrible. But yeah, I was just curious.
That seems to be what everyone's take has been on that. I've known. I mean, especially. I mean, there's a number of people I know where it's like The Exorcist that's their film. That's the one they absolutely adore.
Right.
And most of them were like 3 episodes. Turn off the series link, never bother, So, I mean, obviously, we must discuss Max von Sydow and his old man makeup. Chris, did you recognise him as being Ming the Merciless from Flash Gordon?
No, but I haven't seen Flash Gordon much.
Oh,
Did you recognise
him? But I don't know how far you're into Game of Thrones at the moment.
Ooh,
we
got to season 6. I think.
Oh, so you've seen he's the 3-eyed raven.
Okay.
But he's not the original 3-eyed raven. In the first time the 3-eyed raven turns up, it's the old boy from Kill List. But then Max von Sydow said he'd do it, so they told him to jog on and said, right, we'll have Max instead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that seemed a bit odd that he changed, but yeah, okay.
And you did recognise him from Star Wars, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think we did talk about him before, but I didn't recognise him in this.
So he's in The Last Jedi.
Lor San Tekka.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's got the map to Luke.
That's the one.
But this
that guy.
This one shocked me though. He's the uncredited voice of Vigo the Carpathian in Ghostbusters 2.
No, really?
Yeah. And when you actually hear that, you just go, well, of course it is, because now I'm hearing Vigo in my head. That's Max von Sydow's voice. I just assumed it was still the guy from In the Mouth of Madness. But,
yeah.
So he's the body, but yeah, Max von Sydow's the uncredited voice of Vigo the Carpathian. And the Scourge of Moldavia.
Oh, command me, Lord.
Yes. What are you talking about? This is Vigo.
I love that film because it's so bad.
Have you seen? I take it you've seen the trailer, the Ghostbusters Afterlife or whatever.
I was going to bring that up actually. I did make a note. I forgot earlier and said, yeah, no, I've not watched anything. The 2 things I have watched was the trailers for the trailer for the new Ghostbusters movie, and I've watched the trailer for Antlers.
Okay, I
can see Bobby nodding his head. He saw this.
Spoiler alert! On the next episode of Not for Everyone, we cover both of those things. But go ahead.
Oh, excellent. So the new Ghostbusters film, could be good. Obviously, it's got the kid from Stranger Things. Yeah, and the first one, so that could be good. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, but it's Paul Rudd, so yeah. And Antlers, I got the impression that it's gonna entirely rest on how good that creature design is. It's only hinted at in the trailer, and I think that's what's going to make or break the film. But yeah, we're yet to see. So yeah, Ghostbusters.
With the Ghostbusters thing, though, I have to quote Trinity the Tuck Taylor and say, "Where are the jokes?" Because for a horror comedy, or a ghost comedy or whatever, the trailers used to have the jokes in them, and now it's just like, if this is just going to be a nostalgia piece, I want wisecracks and funny shit happening.
I think that they were trying to take a different, because like that backfired so terribly for the 2016 Ghostbusters.
No, that's
when
true,
all the jokes were in the trailer.
Yeah.
And they didn't fare well in the trailer nor in the film. But it definitely, that new one, it wasn't what I was expecting. My thing is like, okay, I get it. You're not necessarily like showing all your cards with the humor, but just give me a tag at the end with Bill Murray or Dan Aykroyd or something like that.
Yeah,
we'll see. I'm skeptically optimistic, as I am with most things.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that did please me was the gunner seat, because that's from the real Ghostbusters, the old cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well,
that's where that's from.
Yeah, that cheered me in a weird way. It was like, of all the things, that I'm like,
it was just for you.
Yeah, just for me.
Is that I showed Lady Jennifer last night? I showed her the trailer. Yeah, and her one takeaway was, "Wow, it's only the trailer. The CGI already looks shit." So we'll see how that plays out.
You'd think they'd have that down by now, but no.
And you'd pick the best 2 or 3 seconds of it, like you just have the very best. So yeah, maybe it's not absolutely finished yet, but yeah, you'd think you'd pick the best looking section. But
it's weird. I think also it's I think it's Mark Gatiss was talking about something, and it was like, why is Photoshop still shit in films? Where it's like, oh, we've got this picture where it's like, oh, we've grafted him into the crowd at this old sports stadium or on the grassy knoll, the JFK assassination, and it's always shockingly done, like someone did it very quickly at work. And you're like,
give it to the intern. They know that. Stuff.
You've got, we're thinking you've got a fair budget here. Come on, what are you doing with this?
You can do it on your phone now, for Christ's sake.
That's another thing I'm slightly concerned about. We mentioned it on the last episode, I think. The Ghost Story for Christmas that's supposed to be coming out. We were discussing it the other day, and I went and checked it on IMDb. It's not showing up on Mark Gatiss or who's the guy who was Doctor Who recently?
Peter Capaldi.
Yeah, it's not showing up on his either. So there was stories of it, but I can't find hide nor hair of it anywhere online. So I'm hoping it isn't a fluff somewhere. But I mean, the fact that we all heard it. Like
I've seen it in at least a couple of like interviews and things for upcoming a choice of programming this Christmas on the BBC.
That's what I mean, but it isn't on IMDb, and Christmas is 10 days away now. So
but I think they this may be if they've got parts in it, like it might be if they're doing like a reveal or something.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes you can get stuff. It's like a lot of series will only give you like the IMDb up to that point as it's being broadcast.
Oh, okay.
So they'll show you episode 1, but they won't show you episode 6. So you don't know that the guy who got killed at the end of episode 1 turns up at the end of episode 6 or whatever. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's hope it's that then.
It probably is. Either that or just someone forgot. Everyone's pissed. It's Christmas.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can I just do a big jump back to what's his name, Max von Sydow?
Yeah.
Sydow. Now, did you say that he was in June?
Yes. Yeah. Oh no, I didn't.
Okay.
He is in June.
Yeah. Oh right. Yeah. So that would have stood out to me. I definitely recognise him from there.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I just checked his picture from The Exorcist, and even though it is obvious now you've said it, for some reason I still don't see as much of a resemblance as I thought I probably should. But what was interesting, so David Lynch, I've just, because I'm homeschooling Toby, we've just got the masterclass app. I don't know if any of you have seen that advertised everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And because I was going to show him Hans Zimmer music composition and Penn and Teller teaching magic, right? And they're both fantastic. And then I noticed in the list that David Lynch is in there as well. So I'm going to add that to my list of things that I'm going to watch and see if I can pick up anything from him, because I really like Dune, even though that's not really horror. But what would you say is David Lynch's best horror kind of esque film?
Probably Blue Velvet.
Okay, so I've never heard of that.
That's probably the nearest to being like as dark as it gets, because I must admit, I find Eraserhead funny.
Okay.
And believe me, actually, Chris, if you watch Eraserhead, speaking as a parent, you'll realise it's a documentary. Because it's just basically it's just a horror film about having a newborn baby. It's like this thing.
That is a highly rated film, isn't it?
Oh, it's great. It's great, yeah. But it's weird. It's weird as fuck. Well, yeah, and it has got lots of. Because I think that's the thing, is David Lynch tends to have quirky sort of stuff in there, and even something like Eraserhead, which is just kind of almost sci-fi level sort of weird. There's still a lot to find amusement in there and stuff, and it's back to that thing as well where you get it with a lot of like performance artists and stuff like that, where it's like, if they know it's funny, and I suspect that David Lynch is pissing himself at certain parts of it, that you don't. I like that sort of thing where it's like, yes, I will be pretentious, but I will admit that this is fucking funny. Yeah, there's a woman with big cheeks in the radiator singing. It's weird, but yeah.
I would say that Blue Velvet is your kind of, that should be your first Lynch, because if you like it will. If you like it, I would encourage you to seek out other stuff. If you don't,
sets the scene for the rest.
Let's stop right. So maybe you might like more conventional stuff he does is like the Twin Peaks series. I mean, conventional in quotes, obviously, but it seems like more normies like that series than say something like Eraserhead or The Elephant Man or something.
I think that's where things went weird. Actually, is I think what happened is that a lot of people who liked Twin Peaks didn't like Fire Walk with Me, which was the film he did of Twin Peaks, like a prequel. But that's because the film is is more Lynch.
Yeah.
Whereas Twin Peaks is a creation between him and a guy called Mark Frost, who basically knows things like narrative and and character essentially. So
I was going to say, where does Mulholland Drive fit into this? Because I definitely watched that and I have no idea what it was about. I cannot remember
Mulholland Drive
anything.
Mulholland Drive was actually kind of a pilot. He was going to do another series. It was going to be like his follow up technically to On Air, but no one ever speaks of On Air, which was his 6-episode screwball comedy, which was bit hit and miss. Weirdly enough, as soon as he's genuinely trying to be funny, never let David Lynch do a comedy, because I don't think he can actually do that. He makes stuff funny. It's like you watch there's bits of all of his films have funny stuff in them. I mean, like fucking just either absurdly funny or.
I find Wild at Heart to be a great comedy.
Yeah. I mean, Wild at Heart.
And Lee is still pissed at me for making him watch that movie, for recommending it.
Do you know what?
Welcome to my world.
We should start a support group.
I think I needed to see David Lynch, as you say, like outside of Twin Peaks, which I loved, and I needed to check out a film, and I was like, it's him, it's Nicolas Cage, like Willem Dafoe. How can this not work? And then I went, it's just
because it does.
But yeah, and I know now, and it's fine. But I'm not one to. I like to push myself with stuff like that. Even if I don't like it, a lot of the time I like to experience something outside of my normal
You definitely. That's the thing I like with you is you do try. It's not it's not a shutdown thing.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's not like it's like we said with Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
Where it was like, because I thought you were going to say you didn't like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, at which my response was going to be, why are you still watching Quentin Tarantino movies? You don't like them. You know.
But I've watched every one with the exception of his last one. And that's the thing. And then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, for me, best film of the year, bar none. It was absolutely incredible.
I have to respect you for that. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, I mean, the amount of piffle and mental shit that I have brought around yours, and I know that I have a unusual taste, or sort of, you know, an acquired taste sometimes. But we've sat there, we've watched El Topo, we've watched we watched Pink Flamingos, where we were all prepared for the shit eating and heard nothing about the blowjob. So we were like,
that was totally out of the blue.
Yeah, we were like,
no way ready for that.
Yeah, no, you've shocked us. Well done, John.
Yeah, has Chris been exposed to John Waters yet?
No,
I don't think he has. No.
You should do a spin-off show called Welcome to John Waters.
Oh yeah,
same exact premise. Just go through the whole filmography of John Waters.
Oh yeah. I want to hear Chris's interpretation of the end of Multiple Maniacs, where it's just I'm not going to go any further than that, Chris, in case you get the opportunity to see it. But I'll seriously, I will give you £10 if you see it coming. I will definitely say that.
It is one of those whenever anyone says about a twist ending, I'm like, you've not seen a twist ending until you've seen that.
Yeah. It's like,
I like The Sixth Sense. You're like, no.
Yeah. Well, it's like, what's it called, isn't it? It's the old Eddie Izzard joke about Tales of the Unexpected, where it's like, well, actually, it's Tales of the probably expected, because it's like, you know, I know there's going to be a twist, so I'm looking for it. Whereas there should be there should be an episode where a man thinks that his wife's cheating on him. He's hired a private detective to check it out, and it might be, but they can't really tell. He comes home early from work one day, and a lion eats him. And it's like that is a tale of the unexpected. Yeah. So, in many ways, like the end of No Country for Old Men.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that ending where it's like sort of, oh, okay, yeah, that's life.
Right.
You know, from the beginning, I'm going to kill you all, and at the end of the film, he kills them all.
There is no twist.
It's and I think actually that's the one thing that I think the Columbo cast helps with The Exorcist is it feels real because people just come in.
Just
They're not like, it's the mirror opposite of how the Star Wars prequels worked. Where it's like everything is connected, everything, you know, basically everything's either Darth Vader shagged them or
have you
went
heard
to school with them.
Have you heard Patton Oswalt's take on the prequel? Well, multiple takes, but one of my favorite is just because he's talking about the prequels. He says, just because I find Angelina Jolie beautiful doesn't mean I want to see the inside of John Voight's balls. Or something like that.
That is beautifully summed up. I have to take my hat off to him there. That is, yeah. But it's that. But yeah, you sort of. But with this, there's incidental characters. It's like the girl who's in Exorcist 2. What is it, Sharon? The helper, the tutor helper sort of thing. Yeah, and she just turns up and like she survives the film. She doesn't really get involved that much, but she's there all the way through. And then she ends up, and then in Exorcist 2, she ends up setting fire to herself. But that's as maybe. But yeah, you've just got like a large, again, it feels very real that you've got this large cast and like not all that, it's like, it's not one priest, you know, there's the whole Jesuit school going on. So there's like, you know, it's multiple people that they have to go through. You know, it's not just one guy who says, I've booked you your exorcism. That's all done for you, sir. And we'll have the exorcist round to you in the morning. I'd like it to be like a help desk. You know, hello, exorcism.
Like free people.
Yeah.
So.
But it's the same. I made a note actually this time that I forget actually, Kinderman is he's almost a sideline character in this. So much so that of course there's a detective out there checking up on all these people who are randomly dying.
Mm.
But I always forget he's in it. And then every time I forget not only that he's in it, but what a fantastic character he is. Like I say, he is that kind of Columbo. Like, he's got a really good comedy element to him, and he's a bit of a dick. And
Yeah.
And every time I forget he's in this, and he's absolute delight.
You feel he's going to badger his way to the truth.
Yeah. Again, it's like we said with Deathline and all those other films where you've always got the comedy dickhead detective who actually you forget is part of the film and then is the star of it to some degree.
What was the significance of the Nazi and the drunk guy calling the guy the Nazi in the beginning in that scene, in the party scene?
I think it's just meant to hint that, well, not hint, but just prove that Burke is a fucking nightmare. He's basically sort of like, we find him funny.
Okay.
Because that's the interesting thing in the director's cut, and it's a lovely little touch. But the guy says, "Oh, does Reagan swear?" And she's like, "No." And she said, "Well, she was using some quite bad language." Well, what did she say? Well, I don't really want to say. What did she say? She said, "Keep your goddamn hands away from my cunt." And Ellen Burstyn sort of goes, like, she's just that far from pissing herself laughing. And it's like, but it's in that same sort of way where it's like, oh no, that's absolutely terrible. But she's like secretly,
right.
But you can sort of see that it's like, I've really got to speak to Burke. He's got to stop swearing in front of the kid because let's face it, I was about to say rubbing off on her, but in the book that is kind of hinted that Burke might be. Yeah. And again, I don't think it's in the movie. I don't think it needs to be.
No.
But I think it's kind of down the line of other possible explanations initially for why Reagan is acting up.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah, and you always have they always say in like real poltergeist activities, a lot of the most vulnerable people to that are like pre-adolescent or adolescent young girls.
Yeah.
Or possession. I don't know.
Yeah, like sort of carry factor, like
poltergeist and stuff. Yeah.
And it might be burgeoning telekinesis.
Right.
Actually, I didn't realise. I didn't realise until this evening, actually, having gone through IMDb. So the guy who plays Burke Dennings is actually the guy from what's that film with Sharon Tate?
Oh, Fearless Vampire Killers.
Yes. Yeah. And again, they aged him up so massively. I was like, there's something about him that I really recognised. And then when I went and checked, I was like, oh shit, yeah. They just stuck a massive moustache and a bad wig on him. But
oh yeah, no, he looks like professionally ridiculous in the Incredible Vampire Killers. But then but he's
such a good film.
I mean, Burke is kind of like I think weirdly, I think Burke is possibly William Friedkin sort of like going, oh, isn't this disgusting? Look at the way these directors carry on. Meanwhile, sort of like, have we hit a priest yet? Well, why not? It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I said I wanted the priest hit by 8 a.m. But this is, I think, I remember talking to you about this years ago, Lee, where it's like you sort of get films have a certain level of power if people have to go through shit to do it. Much in the same way as no matter how many times they'll do a stunt in a new James Bond film, you know that in the old films it was basically, well, we're going to flip this car over and possibly kill a man, but if it works, great, and we'll put it on the film. And
it's almost Newtonian. Like it's like you've got like putting that action reaction effort into things. It resonates through the response from the audience. The classic example is like even stuff like just the fight choreography in like Raiders of the Lost Ark compared to what you will see nowadays in some stupid like The Rock movie or something, where it just doesn't have that same visceral response from me, at least.
Yeah, totally.
And I think I mean that's really because a lot of people, I know that there was a statement put out by the Catholic Church that there is a power in the film of The Exorcist around the sort of the time it was released.
Sure.
But that power, I think, is just well, to put it, sort of actors suffering for their art, you know.
Right.
But then I think it pans out. And I mean, it's like nowadays you would CGI the breath coming out of his mouth.
Yeah.
They just refrigerated the set.
Cold.
Right.
They just refrigerated the set, and Linda Blair, a 12-year-old girl, is sat there in a nightie. And basically,
even if your eyes don't notice that kind of stuff, I think your brain still.
Yeah. There is a lot. I mean, and it's not just the subliminal Pazuzu face turning up and sort of stuff, which weirdly enough, I think is probably the nearest that it gets to a jump scare.
Yeah.
And even then, that's not really a jump scare. That's more a, did you see that? Well, oh, no.
There's a very abrupt like scream from Reagan right when Father Dyer comes in, I believe. That was kind of startled me.
Yeah,
like,
there is
it's definitely not like cheap. If there are jump scares, they're not like for the sake of like, look how spooky, and it's not a cheap jump scare.
No.
It's a build of tension followed by a
right.
Yeah. And I think what I liked about this. I'd forgotten just how slow paced it is, because it is a 2-hour movie, and the action in it really is only 20 minutes, half hour, but it doesn't feel drawn out. It doesn't feel like and like I love a long protracted build up to a really good end.
I'm not going to say Mandy
like at all.
I'm not going to say Mandy.
Love it. Love the first part of Mandy.
Fuck Mandy. But yeah, it doesn't feel like that. Like it just kind of draws you into it so much that you kind of forget where it's going, and then when it starts happening, it kind of awakens you to it. So yeah, I just think it's a fantastically put together and really well paced film, considering it's 2 hours with not as much going on as you remember. You remember it being a lot more. Again, not actiony, but you remember a lot more of the very visceral, very over-the-top scenes. But actually, they're fairly sparsely dropped into the storyline, but not enough to make it feel drawn out.
Because going back to what... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
I was going to say, going back to what Chris was saying earlier, which I was agreeing with, is like growing up, knowing about this movie through pop culture, never actually sitting down and watching it. Like he was saying, it's like you thought it was just two priests in a room the whole time, but there's basically like this whole first 2 acts of like something kind of slow burn 70s style horror. However, like Lee was just saying, it's like I felt like, once you got to that point where you're in the room with the two priests, you're like, oh shit, this movie only has like 20 minutes left to it. Like it's so much more than just that. And the theatrical cut is like pretty much exactly 2 hours, and it felt to me like an hour and a half because of that.
Totally.
Yeah, it does not drag, and I think it's also a shame. I think this is something that maybe it's audience's fault. I don't know, but there is now a thing where they wouldn't give you. I don't think an audience would be trusted enough in a weird way to be like, look, we're going to give you this, but you've got to stick with it. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of things now. I mean, like Alien. I mean, when you watch Alien, I don't think John Hurt gets the thing on his face till an hour in.
Yeah.
Right.
And you don't
look at Jaws. That. You don't even see the shark in Jaws until like an hour and 40 minutes in or something. Yeah. Or
Yeah. And I
think that was the thing, and I think Lords of Chaos was one of the only films, sort of semi-recently, that actually did that allowed itself enough time to really build up a good head of steam, and that wasn't particularly well received, as I remember. I know how we all felt about it. What did you think of that film, Bobby? Were you a fan, or
Lords of Chaos? Which one was that again? I think
that was the Rob Zombie.
I haven't seen it yet.
No, that's Lords of Salem.
Okay. Lords of Salem.
Oh,
Lords of Chaos is the black metal film.
Sorry,
do you mean Lords of Salem?
Yeah, I meant Lords of Salem. Yeah.
Lords of Salem. Okay. I notoriously I'm not a great, huge Rob Zombie fan in general. I like his music more than his movies, but I was not. I need to give Lords of Salem a chance because I watched. I was like, oh God, like I did not like it. I'm going to say that right now. But since you guys have glorified it here and there throughout the lifespan of this podcast, I think I'm thinking about giving another chance. I may have been in the wrong state of mind or something when I tried to watch it, or thought it was going to be something else. But I don't remember much about it, but I remember not finding it all that good.
See, I think also it has that weird thing of, I think Rob Zombie kind of reacted back against it, where it's like, oh shit, people don't like that. I will go back to sort of Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses.
Like really visceral, really fast, really loads of action.
But weirdly
to
enough,
be fair, I didn't really understand Rob Zombie's like whole homage to like 70s Satan type stuff at the time, contextually, as I would now compared to when I watched that movie. So maybe that has something to do with it too. But yeah.
But I think, I just think it's that sort of, weirdly enough, I think the worst thing that's happened, the best thing that's happened and the worst thing that's happened in entertainment is immediate feedback. Where people, because it's like, that's fine to react, but it goes one or two ways. You're either second guessing yourself and you're not, at that point, you're not doing what you purely would have come up with.
Right.
Or the worst thing, which is you're getting a lot of positive feedback and you think, oh, dude, we'll just do more of that. We'll do more of that. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. But again,
you need to branch out. And
my rule is I don't read any reviews or feedback on any movies that I'm actually interested in seeing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If it's something I'm unsure about, like maybe that could be good, maybe not. Maybe I'll read some Rotten Tomatoes or whatever on it. But if it's something I'm looking forward to, I'm not going to, distort my my viewing of it with that stuff.
No, I do exactly the same. I try to avoid, because it is fairly easy to go into stuff. If you've heard it's going to be shit, you kind of go in and do kind of find yourself picking faults in it where you wouldn't necessarily. So yeah, I definitely am the same. Like if I really want to see something, I will try and see it before I get any spoilers or anybody else's opinion on it, and try and get it fresh.
In the same arena as that point, I find that the more divisive, the more interested I am in it. Like if audience is like, audience is 85% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, but critics is like 3%, I'm just like, I got to see this movie, or vice versa.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Because I think there is, again, like you say, it doesn't necessarily have to be one way or the other. Because critically acclaimed doesn't necessarily mean interesting, because you can have, I mean, let's face it, I mean, just an example, probably Mom and Dad.
The Artist. Okay.
I just recently sort of saw that, and I know that got, absolutely zero in terms of any critical acclaim. But lots of people were just like, oh, this is, just fucking nuts.
It's Nick Cage doing a massive Nick Cage. And
I would say that we are the demographic for that movie.
Yes.
Literally the four of us.
Yeah.
So thank you, Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Right. So we should probably wrap it up, as we've gone on for nearly 2 hours.
Nearly gone on for as long as The Exorcist.
Well, one last thing though, we've got to say,
we need to do some serious end though.
Mercedes McCambridge, who was the voice of the demon.
Yes.
And we're back to Billy Friedkin, nutter or genius. I think it's both, frankly.
Yeah.
But basically she said, I'll get my voice going again. I'll drink raw eggs. I haven't smoked for 20 years and I'm a recovering alcoholic. But if you buy me loads of fags and I drink whiskey, which if nothing else sounds like an excuse, I've got to do it for a film.
Yeah.
It's sitting there ripped to the tits on like cheap cider. I'm doing it for a film, all right.
Like, you're not
going to be huge. And then but that wasn't enough for good old William Friedkin. So he also tied her to a chair so that she would sound restrained when she's fighting it. And that was the one thing that Claire really took away from it, was she just like, the demon's really cool. And I was like, yeah, because it's the only one in the film having fun. Everyone else is having a really shit time, but the demon's living it up.
I did like how the demon's first appearance whenever what's the main priest's name again? Father Karras. When he first appears, he's still skeptical, like, oh, it's just like, he's schizophrenic or whatever, like mental illness thing. But like the demon's like at full blown peak demon at that point with like bloody scars on their face. And he's still like, yeah, I can't help you. You got to talk to me.
Yeah. And also I did find myself I spent most of the last week at work being found in corners, just going, why, Jimmy? Why did you let me go, Jimmy?
My mother used to say that to me. I swear to God. Why you do this to me, Dammy?
Yeah.
That's like, here's the Exorcist. I'm like, no. And then I saw that, and I thought of myself. That's what
this is the insights of your parentage are really beginning to. It's explaining a lot.
Really does. They're insane people.
So, Chris, any final thoughts before we wrap up for this evening of your?
I'm looking forward to seeing The Exorcist 3.
Yeah. Excellent. You will not be disappointed, I'm fairly sure.
And if you are disappointed, we're just going to put your gag back in and leave you. That's it.
Yeah.
Put you in a box out on the street. Excellent. So, thanks ever so much, everyone, for listening. Bobby, thank you so much for coming on this evening.
Sure.
This has been brilliant. Thank you so much. No, seriously, man. It's just
thanks for
so great to have you on here.
Can I plug my stuff?
Yeah, go for it.
Not For Everyone podcast. The title alone, you've been warned. On all podcatchers. Real quick, I like to describe it as a meta ride of the vehicle of film and movie podcast, where that is actually takes second backseat to two grown men angrily exploring a very flawed friendship. So
that's a perfect encapsulation of it, actually.
Yes.
But it's massively entertaining.
Come for the reviews, but stay for the characters.
No, the reviews are like it doesn't even matter what movie we're talking about. That's the thing. If you go back and listen to the early episodes, you'll see that we're trying to kind of like straight face it, like we're trying to do a legitimate movie review podcast, and then like we shoved it out to some of our friends. Are like, no, just amp up you guys yelling at each other. Like, well, that's just that's what we've been restraining this whole time to remain professional. So.
We abandoned professionalism a long time ago, and it worked so much
conventionalism or whatever. Cool. Is this the Christmas episode, the Exorcist?
No. This is the welcome to 2000. Welcome to 2020.
Happy New Year, bitches.
Cool. Welcome to 2020 with a 40-odd-year-old episode about ancient evil.
Yes. Real quick, we got our big Christmas special coming out, which will strike your fancy, gentlemen. Doing a whole special on Whitley Strieber and communion.
Wow! Yeah.
It's probably out by the time this goes out already, but I thought I'd let you guys know.
Excellent.
We're trying to give you a real abductee, but we'll see what happens.
Shit, that'd be amazing.
I'm rereading Communion right now, and it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know about shit. That's my review of Communion. I don't know.
Well, I'm already giving that episode 5 thumbs up. Whitley Strieber's arse.
Yeah.
Already, I know that is going to be good.
And some big toes.
Actually, your last one was the last one, as of recording, was The Prophecy, which is a film that Lee and his brother basically have always been telling me to watch, which I've never got round to it, but I'm going to have to take the plunge, especially because I think the trilogy's like £5 on Amazon. So I don't think it's...
Yeah. No, I got all 5 of them for like $8.
Wow.
Yeah. It's on like 2 disc or something. I don't know. I've never seen any of the other ones, but yeah, The Prophecy is weird, good, weird 90s nonsense.
Oh, yeah, no, that's appealing.
That's a very good description of it, definitely.
If you like Leviathan.
From the people who didn't complain about Deep Star 6, we present.
Yeah, I'm actually editing the new episode right after we get off the line here, so that should be out this week as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Excellent. So so go and check out Not For Everyone podcast. I know we say it every episode, but you've heard Bobby yourselves now, so how could you not? Thanks ever so much again for joining us. We really do appreciate it. It's it's been really good fun.
And thank you for my homework this week, which is to watch Tigers Are Not Afraid, my first Shudder recommendation.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
watch that one. And softly cry yourself to sleep afterwards.
He's a parent. He does that anyway.
Every night.
Possibly pass on that after that line. And we will see you all in a fortnight's time. Thanks very much for listening. Good night.
Nice.